Yara Valdez had spent most of her 23 years on a mattress propped against her parents' garage wall, visors strapped over her eyes, listening to coolant fans whir. On good nights, ocean wind carried the distant thud of cargo lifters coming into Port Sagitta. On better nights, she heard nothing at all, just the low hum of the local net and the metronome of her own breathing as fighter drones responded to her hand signals in obsidian skylanes, a VR dogfighting sim rated too niche by mainstream streamers. Those were the nights she found herself most alive, alone in an airless digital sky, playing a game no real military cared to notice. Then, Novagrid burned. The megacity's concentric towers had once glittered so brightly, the orbital ferries used its neon grid as a second lighthouse after dusk. But 3 months before Yara's present moment, an insurgent outfit called the Legion Consortium hijacked a train of antimatter reactors, marched them inland, and issued the mother of all ultimatums. Surrender the region's databanks or watch every watt of stored power melt down. The planetary government, thousands of kilometers away in gleaming Auriga Prime, responded by sending a single garrison. It was chewed up in 12 hours. With the guard in tatters and every freight tunnel mined, Novagrid's survival came down to ragtag civil defense miners, with stabilized drills, nurses who volunteered as field medics, and one unlikely addition, the Nova Militia Gaming Auxiliary. The NMGA, as its founder Milo Zero Lag Hirsch insisted on pronouncing each letter, was a constellation of backyard strategists who met nightly in chat rooms, voice channels, and haptic leagues. Milo had discovered, while breakdowns swept through conventional command, that Novagrid's orphan drone fleet still accepted firmware uploads from any terminal sporting the right encryption handshake. The militia's proposal was audacious. Perfect VR tactics in simulation, export them as live maneuver scripts, and let a distributed web of gamers command the drones in real time. Everyone else called it lunacy. Yara called it destiny. She got the invitation on a creaking old display panel. Ghost Pixie, we need your evasion paths. Warehouse 91, Echo, midnight, bring your rig. She stared at the message until the neon date stamp flickered and disappeared. Her parents, huddled in the kitchen next door, whispered about evacuation lotteries. Yara quietly packed the haptic gloves her mother had sewn electric threads into, slipped out and pedaled across the sleeping suburbs, visor dangling from her neck like a priestess's relic. Warehouse 91 Echo was an old drone maintenance hub. Steel bones, broken skylights, the ground cluttered with crates labeled "Property of Auxiliary Sky Wing." Inside, dozens of gamers milled between rusted drone carcasses, linking their rigs to a makeshift rack of servers buzzing on scavenged coolant. Milo Zecht, restless, wearing a jacket covered in QR tags, stood atop a crate and tapped a wrench against a drone's carbon wing. "Listen up," he called. "The city's going dark, and we're lighting the world's biggest LAN party so it doesn't stay that way. Our trainer sim has every block, every sewer line, every roof scanned. The drones outside still run on the Horizon MK Ivy architecture. We feed them tactics like we feed the SimSame engine. If you can fly a fighter or coordinate ground mechs in VR, you can save a city." He gestured at a half-sea collapse mezzanine. "Up there, Captain Rourke from the disbanded 8th Guard will serve as liaison. Chain of command ends here. We're not your officers. You're not our pawns. We're partners, and time is evaporating." Captain Rourke, salt and pepper beard, one arm in a sling, surveyed the room. His real eyes looked more tired than any avatar's, yet something like hope flickered behind them. "You want legitimacy?" he rasped. "Fine. I hereby deputize the Nova Militia Gaming Auxiliary. The drones answer to anyone who keeps Legion boots off our streets. Prove your kill ratio on Sim tonight. At first light, you go live." Adrenaline zipped across the warehouse. The gamers moved like swarming birds, uncrating motion rigs, stringing power lines, arguing about DPI settings. Yara found an unoccupied drone skeleton, a sleek Sparhawk-class interceptor with graphite wings folded like a resting insect, and plugged her visor into the adjacent terminal. The system recognized her handle, auto-loaded her custom UD. She slipped the gloves on. Luminous filament hugged her fingers. The training sim blinked to life. A textured canyon of collapsed skyscrapers. Legion insignias glowing red atop enemy armor columns. Milo's voice cut in, tinny over the shared channel. Phase 1, escort evac transports past Grid 12. You crash even one of my Sparhawks. I revoke snack privileges. Yara flexed her shoulders. She wasn't big in the meta scene. She'd never won a sponsorship. But she had something that once made her streaming audience small, yet ferociously loyal. Improvisation bordering on insanity. While top pilots traced textbook-esque curves, Yara invented spirals so chaotic they looked accidental until every missile passed her by. She'd learned early that algorithmic targeting hated unpredictability more than armor hated shrapnel. Now, unpredictability might keep ambulances alive. She exhaled, triggered her launch. The Sparhawk's motors screamed in surround audio. Heat rippled through haptic webs across her back. She zipped above the digital skyline, looped twice, then dove, dragging two enemy quadrotors in pursuit. Near Grid 11's plasma-shattered billboard, she switched vector 30 degrees down, then 90 up, corkscrewing between antennas. The quadrotor's firing solutions lagged by microseconds enough. Legion missiles kissed each other in mid-air like mistaken lovers, detonating in an orange bloom that illuminated her flight path. The evac convoy rolled beneath, untouched. Milo whooped. Ghost Pixie just made confetti of Squad Delta. People, copy those curves. Within 40 simulated minutes, the evac transports cleared the perimeter. The scoreboard scrolled names, damage, survival times. Ghost Pixie sat at 1. A hand touched her real shoulder. Yara yanked off the visor, blinking away digital snow. Captain Rourke looked at her, as though she'd materialized from legend. Can you teach that? Better, she said. I can upload it. Rourke nodded toward the hangar doors. Night had thinned. Dawn seeped weird lavender through broken skylights. Then saddle up. The Legion is forming a wedge across Row Plaza. If they establish a forward battery there, we lose power to hospitals. Our boys on foot can't reach the plaza, but our drones can. Yara felt her pulse sync with the drone's battery gauge displayed on the monitor. 97%, 96%. Let me bring 2 wingmen, she said. Rourke nodded again. She tapped Kale, Nerf Meetsang, whose reflexes outpaced any aimbot, and Asha Lag Romancer, Burn, a tactical prodigy with spreadsheets for dreams. Together they uploaded their perfected maneuver scripts into a squadron of 3 physical Sparhawks parked outside on impact damp skids. Technicians tore away safety clamps, servos warmed. Sunlight crawled across carbon fiber. A klaxon wailed citywide, emergency channels overriding commercial broadcasts. Legion armor approaching Row Plaza. All civilians seek shelter. Milo's voice snapped over team comms. Militia, you are green. Data surged over quantum mesh, linking visor telemetry to drone autopilots. The boundary between game and battlefield evaporated so completely, Yara only later realized there should have been a moment of ritual or fear. Instead, there was only flight. The first thing she noticed outside simulation was how imperfect the real sky felt. Pixelation was gone, replaced by grit on the wind, a smear of ash where the sun should gleam. She banked right, engines roaring through smoke plumes. In her overlay, Legion tanks, like faceted beetles, crawled toward the center of Nova Grid, escorting mobile reactor cores. Ground defenders shot rail slugs that plinked off composite armor like rain. Pixie lead, I have missile lock, Nerf me announced. A shimmering triangle flashed crimson across Yara's HUD. They were still 10 seconds out of firing range, but Legion SAM turrets on the rooftop ahead were not waiting. A pair of hypersonic arrows streaked up. Yara toggled her improvisation script. Her Sparhawk juked left, then half-rolled, inverted. Gravity threatened to rip consciousness from her skull. G-Con pulses spiked in the suit's compression bands. She slammed her heels, cueing an S-curve so violent alarms blared along the drone fuselage. The missiles overshot, spiraling into a hotel's empty penthouse. Energy pulses from Nerf May's weapons pod hammered the rooftop turret, spraying molten shards. Lagomancer skimmed lower, dropping micro-shield projectors that unfolded into hexagonal umbrellas over a civilian convoy pinned against rubble. Children inside an ambulance looked up in astonishment at cascading blue light. "Convoy protected," Asha reported, breathless. Yara smiled despite burning lungs. This was a city built on lights, after all. They were just returning some lumen credit. But Legion had studied its prey. From a side street, a mobile rail battery rose, bristling with magnet coils too large for its chassis, yet somehow operational. It swiveled, targeting Lagromancer's drone. Yara saw the vector 2 seconds before the battery charged. Time dilated. She could hear only her own heartbeat, an old track she used to loop while speed-running games at 2 a.m. She yanked her flight path downward, aiming straight for the rail battery. "On my 6, she ordered. At 20 meters, she killed thrust, flicked the drone into a skid across broken pavement, dragging sparks. Sensors shrieked proximity warnings. She transferred all stored vectors into a diffractive decoy, an algorithmic ghost replicating her heat and radar signature, and fired it up above the rail barrel. Battery corrected aim, projectile exploding through the decoy. Real drone still low, Yara reignited engines blasting under the rail system. Her Sparhawk's belly scraped debris, shredding its lower aileron but buying vital seconds. Nerf came in from high right, launched twin ion borers. They punched through the battery's coil stack like tungsten needles through paper. The machine gouted plasma and died. Cheers erupted across shared comms, not only from her wing, but from a dozen other gamer cells watching the feed. Rourke cut in. "Pixie lead, that battery was the linchpin. Citywide sensor showed Legion momentarily stalled. Good work." Yara felt her throat tighten. Copy, but they'll adapt. And they did. Over the next hour, Legion columns shifted strategies with algorithmic precision, patching weaknesses, laying decoy frequencies to fool drone targeting. What began as an adrenaline-spiked sortie devolved into chess, with live ammunition. The gamers fought from rooftops, back alleys, sewer hatches, their drones hovering like angry angels. Each time Legion seemed ready to break through, some half-forgotten tactic from a scrimmage league popped into a gamer's mind, got uploaded, and flipped the board. One squad routed a tank platoon by simulating an artillery barrage with synchronized speaker drones. Another jammed Legion comms by splicing in memes encoded at spectrum edges, garbling machine parsers. But for every small victory, batteries depleted, hulls cracked, pilots' focus frayed. Even VR rigs couldn't mask the fatigue of constant micro-maneuvers. By noon, Yara's vision tunneled. The drone's right wing fluttered from shrapnel. She counted only 12 functioning Sparhawks, where 30 had taken off. Captain Rourke convened a hasty war council in the warehouse, broadcasting to all rigs. His injured arm now bandaged tight, he leaned over a holographic city grid. Legion flagship crawler Golgotha is deploying at Nova Grid's heart. It's got shielding we can't pierce in conventional fashion. If it reaches Central Data Vault, they'll override every defense left. We believe the crawler's command AI has a single blind spot. It cannot target what it cannot classify as threat. Ghost Pixie's chaotic flight patterns exploit precisely that. We need a spear through the I-1 run, one pilot with ever-remaining drone providing noise, the warehouse murmured. Yara felt a magnetic pull. Fear, yes, but sharper, almost gravitational. She lifted her visor. "I'll go." Before anyone else could object, Milo clapped once. "Then we dedicate everything to her lane. Coders, spin up the Fountain Protocol." Dozens of gamers typed with renewed fury. Fountain was a legendary exploit rumored in modding circles. Flood an AI's classifier with so many edge case objects it defaulted to passive mode. The plan was to dress every decoy drone in randomized skins, petroglyphs, fractal equations, celebrity faces, then swarm the crawler, transforming the battlefield into a psychedelic museum the AI couldn't parse. Lagromancer slid across the concrete and hugged Yara, cheeks smudged with coolant. "Don't let math kill you," she whispered. Yara forced a grin. Not without giving it a pop quiz first. Technicians wheeled in the last unscathed Sparhawk. Matte black, printed hours ago from stolen nanocarbon feedstock. Its designation read, NG Last Hope. But someone had crossed that out and scribbled Glitch Cricket in neon marker, Yara's personal brand. She climbed a ladder, seated herself into the partial cockpit, where haptics and neural laces converged. As fiber wires bit into scalp sensors, she tasted copper. Milo's voice filled the channel. "Drone net launching in 30. Craft initiate fountain skins." On Yara's HUD, allied drones exploded into a fireworks display of textures. Oil paint koi, dancing stick figures, comic book, pow bubbles. It was absurd, and therefore perfect. Pixie lead, you are go. The hangar doors gaped open. Outside, Golgotha loomed, a kilometer-long crawler with cathedral spires doubling as antenna arrays. Its armored skirts grinding the boulevard into crushed glass. Sky thickened with burnt circuitry smell. Yara throttled max. The glitch cricket shot forward, accompanied by 26 decoys fanning out in stochastic patterns. Legion anti-air turrets saw a kaleidoscope, hesitated milliseconds too long. Their first volley missed everything. She dived low, weaving between archways of ruin. Above, drones popped like confetti bombs, each death adding more noise to the AI's confusion. Colored shrapnel rained, blocking line-of-sight sensors. Her objective marker glowed ahead, the crawler's dorsal sensor array, the eye that orchestrated Legion forces. Close now, 10 seconds. Alarm shrieked, new hazard. Golgotha uncoiled segmented tentacles armed with autoguns, sweeping 360 degrees. Fountain scrambled pattern recognition, but kinetics didn't need eye-just movement. Bullets laced the air. Shields at 40, Yara murmured to no one. The cockpit trembled. She recalled a childhood memory, her brother teaching her to ride a motorcycle. "Don't aim away from obstacles," he'd said. "Aim between them." Same principle, larger stakes. She slalomed through tracer lines, feeling them graze digital skin. At 5 seconds, she angled upward, cutting thrust, letting ballistic momentum hurl the drone like a bullet. A tentacle speared forward. Yara reversed stabilization, performed a mid-air pivot, something physically impossible for a standard drone, but possible here because 2 nights prior she'd hacked the control firmware to remove torque safety caps, purely out of curiosity. The Sparhawk twisted on its axis, letting the tentacle slice across tail fins instead of cockpit. Structural integrity dipped 30%, but she was past it. Approaching the eye. "Deploying payload," she breathed. Her left glove fingers pinched, triggering a warhead seldom used, a bundle of quantum-tuned chaff that once released would collapse into a micro-fog of entangled particles, disrupting line-of-sight targeting for any AI dependent on photon-time correlation. The warhead detached, rotating slowly. Yara punched thrusters, somersaulted away. The warhead blossomed, glittering like a swarm of silver insects. The crawler's eye flickered, then dimmed. For a heartbeat, the whole battlefield went still as if sound paused to recalibrate. Then panic ignited in Legion ranks. Tanks lurched off course, troopers stumbled, friendly fire flags spiked. Autonomous routines, blind and erratic, fired into empty intersections. It was enough. From the north, ground guard survivors advanced, rallying under the gamer's drone screen. Explosive charges planted by sapper bots detonated along Golgotha's treads. The crawler groaned, spine fracturing, each segment collapsing like train cars in slow motion until the entire Leviathan lay gutted across 3 city blocks. In her cockpit, Yara felt weightless. She checked system vitals. 12% battery, wing shredded, stabilizers offline. She'd done it, and she might crash. Voice shaky, she hailed control. Cricket experiencing critical drag. Any vectors for safe ditch? Silence, then Rourke. Pick a roof, soldier. We'll catch you. She aimed for the tallest remnant nearby, once a luxury hotel with a heliport. Aerodynamic equations scrolled, bleak but plausible. At 50 meters, she dumped remaining fuel for a last burst, lifting nose just enough. The drone skipped across the rooftop, tore through an advertising scaffold, spun, and stopped inches from the edge, smoking. In the sudden quiet, she removed her visor. The real skyline looked strangely low resolution now. Malicious cheers crackled over open channels, but she heard them as if from underwater. She staggered to the roof's parapet. Workers down below danced, waving improvised flags. Legion banners already smoldered in trash fires. A maintenance stair clanged. Milo bounded up, out of breath, arms stretched. Pick only ghost in hell. You wrote new physics out there. She laughed, half sobbing. We wrote new rules. Rourke limped behind him, gaze surveying the broken crawler like a farmer admiring sunrise after storm. Novagrid owes you its heartbeat, he said. All of you. Sirens softened, replaced by distant music as some citizen rewired a PA system to play an old pop anthem. Yara wondered if the city would ever smell normal again. If neon could still be beautiful after being a target, she didn't know. But she knew what had changed. Childhood hobbies had matured into civic engines. The line between player and protector had dissolved. Exhaustion folded her knees. Milo caught her, easing her to sit against a ventilation duct. Drones buzzed overhead like patient falcons returning to glove. In that moment, Yara realized the siege of Novagrid wouldn't be remembered for how many weapons fired or walls fell. It would be remembered for a warehouse of gamers who refused to stay spectators, who uploaded dreams of impossible maneuvers into cold machines, and discovered, in doing so, that reality could be modded too. Even as medbots arrived, she kept her visor balanced on her lap. Its lenses reflected a sky slowly clearing of smoke, pixelated only by tears she hadn't noticed. Tears of relief, of gratitude, and of the overwhelming certainty that tomorrow's wars would not be fought only by those born to soldier. They would be fought by anyone who had ever stayed up late, chasing high scores, learning patience through defeat, mapping labyrinths in their mind, because nobody else had yet. She wiped her eyes, lifted the visor one last time, and peered through. In augmented overlay, the city's grid lines glowed bright teal, pulsing like veins. Pop-up notifications, system alerts, and friend requests cascaded in transparent layers. She smiled despite everything. Game on, they seemed to say. Game on indeed.